And out of nowhere, Rupert Friend's character goes and literally is punched across the street like a scene from The Matrix, right? A scene from The Matrix, and it's like the director.
Yeah.
Just on a point about overemphasizing something. Can I break away on a tangent?
Yeah.
So I was with some people, and it was that classic thing when you're with several people and it's like, what should we watch? And I always take the decision to remove myself from making any decision in that instance, because it's clear that I know the people in the room and I will not want to watch, I will not want to watch what they want to watch, and they will not want to watch what I want to watch. So I basically check out and I go, put on whatever and I'll watch it, okay?
I see. You're like burdened with knowledge of all these films.
Right, so I just sort of like take the film hat off. It's all right, I'll just watch whatever because it's only going to be on for an hour. They showed me the season 2 finale of Bridgerton. I have no thoughts on it.
Okay.
And they also watched, we also watched, I was in the room, the first episode.
You were watching them watch it. Oh, you simpletons.
No, I do go into things with an open mind. So we watched the first episode of a series called Anatomy of a Scandal.
Oh,
on
say
Netflix.
I'm so
all right.
cool.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay. Right. Anatomy of a Scandal is this new show on Netflix which is over-directed to the point of insanity. Okay. Every single dramatic moment in Anatomy of a Scandal is flagged up to the audience, just so you know. In case something happens, you're unaware, slow-mo, tight close-up.
Nostalgic memories of a happy time at the beach with the family. Like
it's about this politician who gets embroiled in a scandal, and it follows his wife and his the barrister, and the wife finds out and she's like riddled with guilt. Not riddled with guilt, sorry, she's riddled with
confusion and rage,
and she smashes into the kitchen, pushes the 2 doors open, it's all in slow motion. And then she goes to the sink and she throws up. She looks at the picture of a happy time and it goes to a flashback when they're all happy on the beach.
So like filmmaking, storytelling 101.
There is a bit at the end of the episode, right, where the politician this is in the trailer, I think I'm allowed to say this. He's informed that the scandal is now being a police investigation, and the female police officer says, it's an accusation of rape. And out of nowhere, Rupert Friend's character goes and literally is punched across the street like a scene from The Matrix, right? A scene from The Matrix. And it's like the director said, right, what happens in this bit? Hearing that news, you know what that is? That's a gut punch. We need to deliver that gut punch. No, I think I could do it through acting. No, Rupert, we're going to have you literally gut punched across the street. I burst out laughing. I could not believe that was the way of ending this show. I haven't watched any more episodes.
I didn't make it that far because my main thought was, people don't talk like this.
Yes.
Who wrote this? No one interacts this way. I don't speak to my sibling like this. I don't speak to my partner like this. Yeah. And I was wondering, like, was this written by an American?
Yes.
Because this is like what we think, like, gritty UK politics, parliament, barristers. It's all just very like fuck, shit, bollocks. Yeah. Like,
I'm fucking tired. I'm going to bed.
Darling, would you like a margarita pizza or a pepperoni? Okay, we'll have that one. I was like, this is not people. These are not people making this. But you know what this is? This is Netflix giving a go at the Friday night ITV critique English drama. I mean, that's their version of it.
All I can say is even Channel 5 wouldn't show this kind of stuff. It would. Channel 5 would go, it's a bit over the top.
Looks very slick. Looks as professional. Yeah, it's too slick. It's bit like a little bit cinematic too much.
James, like the politicians it attempts to skewer, it is all starred and no substance.
I love that we both like kind of ended up watching that.
I know.
And it just
look, it's not.
It'll be really popular though.
I just want to say we don't really relish taking things apart.
No, and I don't want to be like a snob.
I did sit there and I watched the whole. Unlike you, I did watch the whole episode, and I did sit there thinking, okay, I'm not enjoying this, but why? Why? What is not working for me here? And it's just over directed. It's not allowing the audience to engage with it thoughtfully.
Yes.
To go, oh, I understand what's happened there, because it's being spoon fed the whole time. Going, this is a dramatic moment.
Yeah.
This is really serious. Are you listening? Whoa! Did you see that? Well, and it's just boring.
It's like Transformers. Like, look here. Now look here. Now.
Yes.
Now look here. And then we're gonna say this. Now look over here.
Yes.
Here. Cut.
Jesus Christ. Just a quick one.
This episode of Pulp Kitchen is brought to you by Noggin HQ.
Noggin HQ is a hot new credit referencing agency for Gen Z and millennials. They are revolutionizing the way that credit scoring is done by making it cheaper, simpler, and easier.
If you're interested, you're under 30, and you want to start building a better credit score, follow @Noggin HQ now on all social media platforms. back to the show.
So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about great movie endings and bad movie endings. Got some correspondence here.
Go check out that episode if you haven't seen it
Don't
yet.
forget, guys, if you have anything to say, send it to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com or DM us on Instagram and TikTok. So this is again from Dan in Cirencester.
Dan, what up,
about
Dan?
the best endings. He's proffered Inception, Seven, which we did actually talk about, but we actually cut from the episode.
I think we did.
We didn't have a lot to say about it, but yes, great ending.
What's in the box?
Infinity War, which he says he watched at a midnight release screening at an IMAX, and the entire cinema sat in complete silence for over 5 minutes as the credits rolled.
It was a real...
But I just sat there and was just like, yeah, but they're coming back, aren't they? Like we know part 2 is coming out next year. Who's taking this seriously?
I knew they would come back, but I was still. I think the way it let that it was like a good 2-3 minutes of characters disappearing, and I was pretty like, ooh, this is good. And they killed the score. All you could hear was like the sound of the wind and things. And I think I remember seeing this in the special features. They had put the sounds of like birds and bees and nature, and like because actually half the animals had disappeared as well, and they like took out a load of that sound as well, which was quite good.
Okay, yeah. Because then when they come back in Endgame, they pump up the birds and the bees. And do you remember when Paul Rudd like goes to the conservatory and he's like, sort of interpreting what they said.
It's like I was there.
Worst ending he has said is Joker. Controversially, for him, the film had so much to say about mental health, some good and some bad, but ultimately that society had failed those with mental health issues and had therefore ostracized them, and therefore all their actions were driven by this, and he ended up killing those who had wronged him. But then at the end, it's inferred that he randomly kills the psychiatrist, which completely undoes the message and just makes him a mindless killer. Look, I don't want to get into a discussion about Joker because we will be here all day, but that is just his opinion.
A few months ago, we did an episode where we talked about the potential Joker 2 sequel.
Right.
We went like deep into why that film is loved
and how
not
we thought
liked,
it should end,
and how like sometimes the ways in which this film is interpreted by lots of different people is in a lot of ways, at least to me, why I think the film is more interesting than I think some people give it credit for.
Some people like me.
Yeah, well, like some people find like certain decisions like that really irritating, and some people think it's genius. And whether or not the director had the intention to do that, go check out that episode if you just type in Pulp Kitchen Joker.
One of the early days.
One of the very early days. Yeah, food. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You had something, didn't you? Yes, of course.
Yes. Do you remember a few weeks ago you talked about you ranked your seasons of The Office?
Yes.
And you ranked them. Charlie from London said, listen to the Office ranking. He made a compelling argument. I think you should watch, but with your partner. My additional observation is that The Office is only really enjoyable with someone you love because it forces you to engage it actively. And it's just one of those shows you want to laugh to together. And maybe because I'd said I'd watched it alone, right? And I wonder if it is one of those things that like having that shared laughter or something is what brings it together.
I think he's completely right because I did do that.
That was she, Charlie.
I think she's completely right. That's what I did do, and I rewatched it on the fourth time. And yeah, it's rewarding, especially when there's that great love story between Jim and Pam, and then great love story between Michael and Holly. And yes, you share that laughter. And then also because the great thing about the American Office is that they become like family. You become very familiar with those characters. And what great way to share a family with them with someone else. That's such a nice thing to think, oh, that's such a Kevin thing to say, isn't it? Oh, isn't that such a Creed thing to say?
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I would be interested to know if Charlie thought season 3 was the best one for them.
Yeah.
But,
Charlie, let us know.
Write a full message next time, Charlie. Come on.
Jesus, come on. And yeah, I've had that
message.
exact effect where I've laughed out loud more watching Peep Show with Talia than I have watching it alone.
That's scientifically backed.
Oh,
you laugh more when there's people around you.
Yes. Oh, yeah, 100%,
you don't laugh as much on your own. But yes. Great. So I wanted to talk to you about underrated movies. Underrated / overlooked, okay? Because it's very easy to watch a film, especially a film that's big, hyped up and everything, and think, well, that wasn't for me. I don't know why people are seeing that. If I asked you to name all the films that you've seen that you think are overhyped, overrated, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
But underrated is like a particular thing where you know that critically or culturally, for whatever reason, a film is not given its fair dues, and you think, I want to stand up for it. I actually want to champion it.
Or something's not talked about enough.
Yeah, you think, oh, that's overlooked.
Yeah.
So you think it's good, and people who saw it liked it, but that should be bigger than it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that underrated, and what are people missing in certain films? When we were talking about Euphoria earlier, I mentioned about, Brad's Status. That's an example of a fairly underrated film. But I think we should just talk about that. Like, what are there a couple of films that when you scroll past on the carousel, you go, you know what? That is actually not a bad film. People think it's rubbish, but it isn't actually that bad.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Do you have any in mind?
I have a film that comes to mind, which I think is ever so slightly overlooked. And it's a film called 99 Homes with Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon. Yes. Do you know about this film?
James, I watched it on your recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
That's how long we've known each other.
I think it's really good. And this film tackles quite a complex thing, which was the housing crisis, the financial housing crisis, which caused a huge amount of collapse. And
well, specifically, it's about the housing in Florida.
Yes.
And housing repossessions and the profit, how people were profiting, but kind of racketeering off of housing repossessions in Florida post financial crash.
And what I think this film does quite well is it doesn't take a huge macro look at this. It goes straight into one very personal story, an example of the kind of suffering that very normal people would have faced. And it really clearly demonstrates what that would have looked like for what would have been hundreds of thousands of very normal Americans. If you don't know, like basic housing crisis stuff was that many people were sold loans that were in so many ways so many people weren't actually able to pay back. And there were these things called subprime loans. If you watch The Big Short, you know all about it.
Yeah.
And they all got sent these loans. Then all of a sudden it crashed and people's homes just got repossessed, and it was really horrible. And you've got this guy played by Andrew Garfield, who's like sort of normal, lower middle class guy who's just like what you would think of an ordinary guy, and this housing repurposer, Michael Shannon, who's again, talk about underrated actor still. Even though he's very famous and he's a famous face, I don't think he still gets enough recognition for his work. He comes in and he's part of this group of people who are repurposing homes and actually making loads of money doing it. And the film kind of blows on from there, and it also stars Laura Dern. And it's sort of this idea of you can get mad at people like Michael Shannon for profiteering off of it, or you can sort of think more about like the actual situation and how our system works and how it benefits those who are there to take advantage of it. Andrew Garfield, we know, is really, really good, and he does such a great job at delivering that performance, and him together with Michael Shannon. And it's a really, really interesting film that I don't hear anyone talking about. And when I have recommended it to people and they've seen it, I don't think many people have gone like, oh, that was a bit boring or it didn't go anywhere. And I just really recommend it to check it out. It's one of those carousel films you might see and not ever think about. Definitely go check it out. It's really good. It's a complex issue told like very personally, and that's why I like it.
That is spot on. I'm so glad I asked. That is exactly the kind of answer
So glad I asked.
I was expecting. Yeah, I agree. 99 Homes is not talked about enough. I was happy to see recently that it was on iPlayer. It had been on there for ages.
Yeah.
There's a really great dynamic between Shannon and Garfield in it. And Andrew Garfield is like so grubby in it and sweaty and tan and greasy.
He plays like desperation really well, doesn't he?
And he's like, what? And Shannon is in this like clean white suit with this e-cigarette and
cold and brutal,
And
don't get emotional about real estate.
Don't get personal about real estate.
Yeah.
And he's got, but the thing is, even though you kind of hate him, he's not a moustache twirling villain.
He's not evil. He's not an evil guy.
There's a bit in it, I can't quite remember the dialogue, but he explains how it works. He's like, no, this is why I do this.
Yeah.
This work. You did this, and you explain. You understand the mechanics and the logic of why he is that and why he's doing that. You understand the system.
And part of this film is Andrew Garfield, in a way, to help pay off the debt that he now owes. He starts working for Michael Shannon, and that's how he starts to realize the work that he does, and how first of things like how can you live with yourself, and you really get to grips with that dynamic. I think actually like a good double bill would be The Big Short and 99 Homes.
Totally,
because you could learn all about like the macroeconomic stuff and how wonderfully that is able to communicate what went wrong, and then you can get into like the magnascope personal story of what happened.
That's a really good idea for a double bill. A couple of things. I wasn't going to talk about this film, but you've reminded me of it. Another quite underrated film as well that is related to the financial crash is a film called Killing Them Softly.
Yes, I've seen Killing Them Softly.
Yeah, and it's quite a stylish, quite a slick, quite good film. I think it's by a guy called Andrew Dominic. He's quite a good director.
Yeah.
And that is very much, he plays a debt collector in that, Brad Pitt.
Yes.
And it's, quite overly flagged, but very much about the financial crash. You always have speeches by Obama and Bush in 2008 as the crisis was happening. There's lots of things in it about poverty and money and who's owed money, and you've got this juxtaposition between like capitalism on the news and then the mob and what Brad Pitt operates. But he just wants his money. Worth checking out as well. The other thing about 99 Homes I just want to say is that there's a line in that which always makes me laugh, and I always think about, which is where they go to repossess a home. It's just showing Michael Shannon on the job, right? and some guy knows his house is getting repossessed, so he like messes up the sanitation systems, and the whole house floods with human shit. There's no other way of saying it, right? Yeah. And there's a bit where Michael Shannon's on the phone trying to get a guy from town to come down here and clean it. You know, like, he's trying to get the police to arrest him. And he's like, what are you talking about? You can't arrest him. He's flooded the house full of hazardous material. And he's like, what do you mean shit isn't hazardous material? Why don't you come down here and eat some?
And there's another thing where like Andrew Garfield ends up being part of the other repossession, so he gets himself on the other side, and he's so like destroyed by it. Yeah, guilty. That is a funny scene.
Great suggestion.
Yeah, go on, George.
Well, how do I come back to that? So, okay, I'm gonna say a film.
Yeah.
Which I think, look, it's rated. Okay, it's got a. I wrote
it down. This is the thing we said the other day. I was like, what are we saying by rated?
So 99 Homes is rated. You look it up online, it'll have a really good score across the board, but it's just underseen, right? Overlooked, underseen.
I was thinking of a couple of films I wanted to do, and I was like, it was nominated for an Academy Award. I don't think I could actually say this is an underrated film.
So this film has got 82% on Rotten Tomatoes and 7.1 on IMDb. It's perfectly solid.
Do with that what you will.
But when you look at this film, at the poster, and if you know the director, the kind of films the director made, you think, and if you see the trailer, you think that looks big budget, boring, overly American, overly dramatic, sensationalist rubbish. Okay. And that is a film called Deepwater Horizon.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
Yes, right? Deepwater Horizon. I saw that in cinema.
Right, okay. So it's
it's just you and me. We got a job, right?
Mark Wahlberg in this fictionalized, dramatized retelling of
John Malkovich.
Yes, I'm going to get there, James. Don't worry.
It's all coming back to me.
It's based on the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. It's got Mark Wahlberg as an oil worker, Kurt Russell as an oil worker, John Malkovich doing, admittedly, a very strange accent, a very villainous accent, as like a Cajun
corporate overlord.
Cajun overlord. If it's not at 2%, it's like that kind of thing. Really.
Yeah.
You've got Kate Hudson at home as the worried wife.
Worried wife is such a part, isn't it? It's such like, you just know what you're doing. Picking up the phone.
The same way. Have you ever seen Everest?
Yes.
Like Keira Knightley. Anyway, Deepwater Horizon, the reason it's an underrated film.
Yeah, I'm interested.
So could I say it's also directed by Peter Berg, who has made
He did 3 very similar films, didn't he?
Well, he's done lots of film to Mark Wahlberg, which include Lone Survivor, not seen. Patriots Day, not seen. But on the basis of Deepwater Horizon, I would watch. That's the one about the Boston Marathon. Mile 22, never heard of. I think that went straight to streaming.
What was Mile 22?
And Spencer Confidential, not like I'm terribly unhappy, Spencer. Kristen Stewart. It's the one that just went straight on Netflix. Got yellow writing. Yeah. Completely forgettable thrillers. So basically, completely forgettable Mark Wahlberg thrillers, and also Battleship.
Oh my God, that film.
And Hancock, right?
Okay.
So it's not looking good. But Deepwater Horizon is really good film and is really underrated and really overlooked because it actually takes a good half of the film to establish and build up the workings and mechanics of this oil rig and build up the tension so that when the explosion happens,
the pipes, you get just so many shots of these pipes under stress.
Yeah. When the explosion happens, you are fully invested in the drama and you are aware of the spatial environment of the oil rig and the relationship between the different people on the oil rig, and you're more invested then. And I wasn't expecting that. You were expecting almost to cut to the chase straight away. There are, as you said, these really clever shots about people's relationship with pressure and also technology. So there's a fun bit at the beginning where Mark Wahlberg is explaining to his daughter how his job works because she's going to tell the class what your dad does for it. And she has this thing with a Coke bottle and he does this thing and the experiment goes wrong and it explodes the soda. Yeah, in American terms, everywhere, and it's that lingering shot, and you're like, okay, that's a nice bit of foreboding. Yeah. But there's also lots of nice shots of a bit where they fill up a helicopter because they all get helicopters over to the oil rig. There's a shot of a lingering shot as they put the fuel in, and it's both saying like this is our relationship with oil, but also our relationship with machinery and how it's under stress. And there's a bit as well where I think it's Gina Rodriguez. Yes, it's Gina Rodriguez.
Yes.
she's like a motorcycle fan, and she does something where she blows out the motor or something, and it's like smoking, and it's again like this. Oh, things can go wrong. Things are dangerous here, and it's just subtly and slowly building the tension, like the oil tension within the rig itself, and then it goes off, and so I was like, the first half is actually quite interesting about the inner workings of the corporate and grunt, for want of a better word, relationship, and also the the overlord of BP in this whole thing. And then the second half is just a really thrilling, like action survival movie moment, disaster movie spectacle.
You'll catch yourself like surprised by how much I think you'll enjoy it and engage. Another Mark Wahlberg film I remember caught me by surprise is a film called Contraband, which I don't think is a good film. Ooh, no. But I remember watching it. I was in South Africa. You know, like when you're in a hotel and the TV has got like a load of channels, not very few of them are in English or something, and every so often you get to like the Star Movies channel, and I remember like Contraband was on, and it started, we were like, there's literally nothing else, let's just leave it on in the background. And it starts off like we were getting ready, and then like slowly we just ended up sitting on the bed fully sucked into Contraband, and it's one of those movie channels where like there's an ad break every 22 minutes. Oh, God. So a 2-hour movie is taking 3 hours to watch, and it's all those like the ad breaks, so you go, we were just so sucked into this movie. I'm not saying that's underrated. It's not very good, but it just reminded Mark Wahlberg.
But I think do you agree with Deepwater Horizon?
Yeah, I've not. Do you know, I've not thought about that film since I saw it in that era of like the Un Film de Mark Wahlberg trilogy. But like, I would. If someone said we're rewatching that tonight, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's good. Yeah. You should. Yeah. I've only just thought of it now since you mentioned it, and I'm happy to say it's underrated.
Thank you. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I've got another one. I want to give a special shout out to a film I already talked about last week, which is Shame. When we talked about good endings, I talked about why I think the ending of Shame is really good. This is the Steve McQueen film. I'm not going to go into it again, but it is on my list of films which is underrated and overlooked. I think
it's rated. Overlooked? Forgotten?
Overlooked. I'd say it's overlooked.
Okay,
I'd say it's overlooked.
Underseen, perhaps.
Okay, I'm not going to do this one yet. A film I think is underrated is Good Time. Have you seen Good Time?
I love it. The Safdie film. The
Benny,
Safdie brothers film.
Josh and Benny Safdie film. This is the film they did before Uncut Gems, and I think it has Robert Pattinson's best performance by far. It's easily one of his most transformative. He is not at all the person you've ever seen him before. And if you've seen a Safdie brothers film before, you know that it is like a 90-minute heart attack. It is truly just a tension-fueled roller coaster ride. They somehow get away with having the pace shoot up in the beginning, and they have a way to hold it pretty much and sustain it and not feel you are exhausted by the end of it. But the way that film starts, and you basically encounter these two characters on the street, and it's like you just were stopped by people in the street, and now you're following them in this exhausting day. And it is so intoxicating, and there's an amazing moment where it all sort of comes to an end, and you get this lovely score from with the voiceover from Iggy Pop, the pure and the damned. And I don't think enough people talk about this film. I know it's often on a few lists of films which I think people have missed. Because I know Uncut Gems got so much hype because it came straight to Netflix, and it had a much bigger star, or even like a more sort of unorthodox star with Adam Sandler. And Uncut Gems I also really like. But I always say to people, if you liked that film, please go back and watch Good Time.
So your point about Good Time is not that it's, because I think that was rated well when it came out.
Sure.
It's just underseen.
Underseen. I think criminally underseen. I think so many people talk about Uncut Gems. And I'm always like, but what about Good Time?
I think there are people who have seen Uncut Gems, casual film viewers who have seen Uncut Gems on Netflix, liked it, and aren't aware that Good Time is by the same filmmakers, equally as good, and actually
it's not bad
on Netflix
to, say,
to watch. Yeah.
If you like it, there's more of it.
Yes.
It's like you could just go stop Uncut Gems and go straight into Good Time, and you can continue the roller coaster ride.
I love Good Time as well.
Yeah.
I love the propulsion and the way it sustains that energy. I always have these moments with films, with film watching, where you get kind of lull periods, you get a bit of a dry period, and sometimes I just want a film to come out and just grab me.
Yes,
just grab me, and
slap you around the face and say, "Pay attention."
Yeah, it's exactly what I had when I went to the cinema and I saw Parasite. Right. Anyway, and I put Good Time on, and this film was like, "Listen up, we're going," and it's wonderful and it's fantastic. Do you know what? I laughed though because I saw Good Time, thought it was great. 2 years later, Uncut Gems is coming out, and I think I should rewatch that ahead of time. And
Good time, yeah.
Yeah. And my girlfriend was round. And in hindsight, probably not her kind of film, a highly stressful, highly shouty, highly violent film about men being awful, which has about 0 female characters. I mean, it has like 2, but anyway. But the way I sold it to her, I was like, well, it's about, and this is in the film, this is the story of the film. I said, it's about a brother who wants to look after his disabled brother and stop him from being taken away into care. And he sort of like takes him under his wing and like looks after him. And my girlfriend was like, oh, it's like Rain Man. And I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a really nice
like
film where he looks after his brother. And that is the film for about 5 minutes. And then it just takes off. There's an actor in Good Time called Buddy Duress, who is very, he's very much from, what is the area that in Good Time? Is it the Bronx? Is it Queens?
Is it Tribeca, I think?
No, that's too posh. Like, it's a particular.
Not sure now.
I'm sorry, in my ignorance, I don't know the specific region again. It escapes me of where Good Time is set. But Buddy Duress is an actor from that area, and he's the guy halfway through who's so, hey, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
he's great. He's also in the Safdie brothers' previous film called Heaven Knows. Have you seen that?
Right.
That's even more. That's even more relentless and depressing. Could you believe it? It's about It's just about an endless cycle of heroin addiction. It's great. It's a laugh riot. Anyway, what I was saying about Good Time is that with Buddy Duress and is an example of how regionally specific they make that film. They even use like local news anchors in the news footage as well, just to really create that sense that you're in the specific part of New York. And it's seedy and it's grubby. And another point, can I just say about Robert Pattinson in it, who is, as you say, a great performance. The thing is, he's like a cockroach in it. He will do anything to survive. Yeah. And to see his mind working. Films are always really interesting when they're
impulsive.
Films are always really interesting when they're about intelligent characters, whether or not you like them or not, because you like to see someone come up with something that you haven't thought of.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson in Good Time is always thinking ahead, and he's coming up with great solutions and ideas ahead of you, but he's also despicable and like a cockroach. And like in the hospital, when he's trying to visit his brother, his mind is working overtime. He looks at the cops coming in, and
even though he's so despicable, you're kind of rooting for him.
But that's
in some
it.
sick
You're
way.
you're naturally compelled because he is working his mind in that way.
The coolest thing about Robert Pattinson and Good Time is the story of how they got together, where Robert Pattinson saw their film at a film festival, immediately contacted Josh and Benny Safdie and said, "Whatever project you're doing next, I want to be a part of it.
Wow.
Don't worry about like budget or like what you need. Like, I just want to work with you." He's probably got more money than he ever needs. And they said to him, because I've watched this interview, they said, "Are you serious? Because if you mean this, we'll have a script to you in 2 weeks."
Wow.
And that script was Good Time.
Fantastic.
And they were like, because you know how people, I bet, probably say many things.
Yeah,
I'd love to work with you. We must do something. He like really sincerely came up to them, and they really sincerely were like, don't joke. Because if you mean that funds our film, like we will have a script. And that's what happened. And
well, did you know that there were a lot of elements of Good Time that were meant to be Uncut Gems because they wrote Uncut Gems before.
That makes sense.
They've been writing it for ages, and the whole subplot with the brother was meant to be sort of in Uncut Gems as the son, but it just got kind of moved around. I agree. It's rated, but it's underseen and overlooked. Good Time, really good shout.
Get a blanket and watch it.
I want to talk about a film that I think is really underrated. And I'm not the first person to say this. This is, it's not a hot take. People have been saying this for actually quite a few years, which I think was why I actually decided to go and watch this film. So I'm just going to build this up. This film came out in 2009, and I remember seeing the posters for it and thinking, well, that looks rubbish. Saw the trailer, thought, that looks rubbish. I didn't know anyone who saw it. I don't think, or if I did, people were like, oh, that was really rubbish. That was really weird.
Avatar.
No. And that is a film called Jennifer's Body.
Oh, God, yeah. Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
I remember why I
Seyfried.
wanted to see that
Have
film.
you seen it?
I've seen Jennifer's Body, yeah.
Okay, but when did you see it?
In cinema.
Whoa, okay.
And
so
it was a 15?
Yeah, okay. So you went to see that film in 2009 because it had Megan Fox plastered all over it, and you had about one brain cell, right? And all the blood had rushed somewhere else to your body, and you were only thinking about that. And I bet you were
she was very, and the marketing really knew,
And I bet you were thinking, that wasn't quite the film I thought it would be.
I thought it was an asshole. It was all right.
Right. So Jennifer's Body.
I'm sorry, I've not seen it since.
Okay. So I've watched it as a living, breathing adult. I watched it last year for the first time. Okay, because I'd written it off for years. Jennifer's Body is looks on the surface like a generic schlocker, and that is how it was marketed, and that's how it was posted. Like, it's like Megan Fox on the poster looks like she's been possessed and something bad happens and people get killed. End of story. What you actually get is a much more subversive, much wittier, funnier film about being a teenager, about hormones, about attraction, about desire, about how men fear women, and about female friendships. So the basic story is Megan Fox plays this character called Jennifer, and she's got this sort of dorky friend.
She's like cheerleader, popular, super beautiful.
And she's got this dorky friend in Amanda Seyfried, who I think is just about pushing it, playing a high schooler in 2009, considering she was in Mean Girls in 2004. Bit of a stretch. Anyway. And then something happens. She gets kidnapped by like a rock band. This whole thing is nuts. The whole film is crazy.
With Adam Brody from the OC playing. Yeah,
I like Adam Brody. An underrated actor.
An underrated actor. Where did he go? Sorry.
Anyway, they go off, and she sort of gets involved in something bad, which you don't know about until the end.
I don't remember this.
Then she comes back, and she's like alive, but she's sort of dead, and she's sort of possessed by a demon. Okay, and at school, this like triggers like a complete character change. She's like thirsting for blood. There's a very famous gif where she like lights a lighter under her tongue, and it's completely mad. But
she's like killing guys. She's like trying to like lure guys in.
Yeah, she like sleeps with men, and then then she kills them afterwards. And
worth it,
James. And you know what the film is? It's really, really camp. But in a really fun way. I mean, like camp, obviously, everything's dialed up to 11. It's hard to explain and capture that in summary without seeing itself. Because when I was watching, I was thinking, I've never seen anything like this. This is a hoot. This film is a hoot. People have completely misjudged this. There's like a bit where Jennifer gets stabbed. And it's not a spoiler because like the whole point is that she's like possessed and undead in it. And she's like, do you have a tampon? And it's just small, witty things like that. Diablo Cody, I think, wrote Juno as well. And she'd done things like young adult. She's got really good, witty, female character-led stories. And that comes through in Jennifer's Body. So it's funny, it's witty, and also it works as a perfect time capsule of 2009.
Yeah.
I was watching it. There's an emo kid in it who was like, it's like they like dialed him up to 11. They were like, we need you to be more emo. He's got the slick black hair. He's got the caftan kind of dyed thing. He's got the piercings. He's got the bracelets. He's got the eyeshadow. Yeah. There's a bit where they're by the lockers and Jennifer says, you want to come see this band tonight? I heard they're great on MySpace. Like, which even by 2009 was late.
Not only have we gone full circle, we've gone round and round again.
Yeah. And
good God.
And there's some great moments in it, and it's really funny. I would talk about it more. I think I'm stretching at my memory to remember the exact moments in it. But Jennifer's Body is a hoot. It's not a generic schlocker. Watch it. It's funny. It's silly. And J.K. Simmons is in it, and he plays a teacher who has a hook for a hand, and it's never explained. That's how zany it is. And I was like, I miss films that were just like this bold. Just bold and weird. And I think everyone said it was a bit of a tragedy that film got completely mismarketed, misunderstood, and then got done. It's taken 10 years for people to go, oh, that film's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
That film's quite funny. I give it 10 years, it'll be in a Criterion collection.
I wonder if how was it received at the time?
Badly. People wrote it off. They thought it was a bad schlocker. They thought it looked like a generic thriller and schlock and teenage kind of thriller, and everyone said it was just a bad version of that without understanding it was both a kind of a commentary on that and much smarter than it looks.
It's interesting because the two you've mentioned are both films that I've not thought about since I saw them, but like have just disappeared from my frontal lobes as films that are in my consciousness. But why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I believe you.
And you mentioned Star Movies. That's where I saw it on Disney Plus. I was
like,
Jennifer's Body. I'll give that a go. And I think it's like really short as well.
Great. Okay. Just a quick one of a film which I think is underrated or even overlooked or not talked about anymore. This is a film I think is really quite good, and it's Stardust.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God.
Matthew Vaughn film.
Matthew Vaughn, Sienna Miller, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert De Niro. I'm forgetting. Ricky Gervais.
And the main character is the guy, Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil.
Charlie Cox. Who's Mark Strong?
Oh, Mark Strong. Yes.
This film has so much charm and fun in it. Yeah. It is like, it's a fairy tale turned up to 1,000.
Right.
It's really English because you've got this like very English protagonist who feels very like normal to us, and it feels like it has a world that goes as deep as like a Tolkien Harry Potter. It obviously doesn't. It obviously doesn't. But the way in which it talks about like the town that it's set and the mystery of the wall and the witches and Michelle Pfeiffer has so much fun playing like the arch witch who obviously wants to eat the heart of a star to be young.
Of course. And
it's really good. It's super engaging. It's super fun. I think if you watch that film and you don't smile at several points in that film, you've got no heart. And just a quick one to say, me and Talia both love Stardust. I've only probably seen it 2 or 3 times, but it's one of those ones you could put on with the family and everyone will enjoy it.
Right, I need to watch it. I need to watch it. I haven't seen it.
It's so charming. It's so charming. It's really funny. There's all these princes who want to be king, and they're all trying to kill each other and double cross each other. And every time one of them dies, they all hang out as ghosts and watch the rest of the brothers try to like. And when one of them is about to be killed by the other, they're all like pointing to try and get his attention. I promise you, it's a good film. Michelle Pfeiffer's brilliant in it.
Okay.
Give it a go.
That's a
Stardust, and no one talks about it. It might have come out 2009 or 8, a really long time ago.
It's 2007.
2007, yep.
I remember because people shared videos of it on their Bieber page.
Yeah. Oh wow, God, yeah. Stardust. Oh, one more, which is just very passing. I also think The Village is underrated, but we have talked about this in another episode.
Yes.
The Village is really good. It's getting this this new sense of appreciation in modern times now that it's not buried under the weight of its reveal.
Yes.
Village is really good.
That's on Star Movies, and I haven't seen it since it came out, so I'm going to rewatch that as well.
And we talked about that in our good... was it Good Endings? When did
we talked about The Village when we talked about Bruce Willis retiring, because we talked about M. Night Shyamalan.
M. Night Shyamalan. So
episode, I want to say 18. Just looking on your page.
We might rewatch that and do a revisit.
Quick one. So, recently I mentioned about rom-coms.
Yes.
And, I said, they're just, there's something about them that's just quintessentially, watchable, if not enjoyable. But and obviously, it's not going to win over any new fans, and I'm probably going to drive people crazy with this film. But there is a delightful little rom-com that I think people overlook and think is much better than people think. This overlooked film, which I think is really great, is Man Up with Simon Pegg and Lake Bell, set predominantly around Waterloo Station.
I've not seen this.
Do you remember it being advertised?
Yes, I think so.
So, Lake Bell, who's American, by the way, and pulls off an English accent completely successfully.
Really?
Apologies to Moon Knight watchers. Same can't be said there.
Was that intentional, though? Sorry. No.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
What?
Is that an intentional bad British accent from Oscar Isaac?
No. I think he was trying
to come across as like a buffoon.
Anyway, Man Up, right? So Lake Bell plays this woman called, I think she's called Nancy, and she does a really good, convincing British accent. Lake Bell already is a really good, underrated comedic actress. Okay, have
you seen Over Her Dead Body?
Is she in that?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with what's the name of Eva Longoria?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but Lake Bell turns up in sitcom episodes here and there, and then occasionally she does straight drama stuff. She was in that really random film with Owen Wilson where he gets stuck in Thailand and there's a coup, No Escape or something like that. Anyway, but she's a really good comic actress, and she made this film called Inner World, which is about the very niche industry of voiceover artists in LA competing for the next big gig on all the movie trailers.
Right.
And she plays one of the only female voiceover artists. And that's great. It's a really wonderful, charming film.
Yeah.
So she plays this woman called Nancy who basically accidentally takes another woman's place on a blind date. And Simon Pegg turns up, who thinks it's this other woman, and Lake Bell just plays along. And they have this kind of blind date, first date, where Lake Bell is pretending to be someone else. And it's all set around the South Bank and London, and it's all very sweet and charming. But the reason I think it's underrated is that the chemistry between them is so great. Simon Pegg, we know, can do comedy. We know he can do stuff well. And this uses his strengths to the best.
Yeah.
To the best. Can't talk today. To the best. And it's also pacey enough to, barrel along and not feel too baggy.
Yeah.
It's just charming. It's lovely. It's funny. It's sweet. It's great. I every time I see that now on a carousel, I go, "Oh, Man Up! Yeah, that was nice. That was nice. I enjoyed that." Rory Kinnear turns up at one point, does a really good thing.
Nice.
Bit silly, but it's great. Yeah, it's decent. It's actually
Man Up.
it's a serviceable rom-com. So it's not going to win over any new people. It's better than that one I mentioned with Charlie Day a few weeks ago. Like Man Up is genuinely serviceable and sweet and nice, and also like I don't see like the South Bank shot much in London and like in films in like and Waterloo Station. There's just something about it.
They shot a lot around South Bank in that film About Time with Donal Gleeson.
Yes,
They shot a lot of that.
Yes, they
which
did.
a lot of people love About Time.
Yes,
Are you an About Time fan?
I am an About Time fan in the full knowledge that it is not greatly written, inconsistent, messy, really poorly written female characters.
Exactly, yeah.
Illogical motivations.
But cute and charming.
But just cute and charming and a really heartfelt kind of ending. I saw that film in the cinema. I'm a sucker for anything to do with time travel, so I was already in. I love things that take time travel in a different way.
Yeah.
So great.
You just close your eyes.
You just sort of do. Yeah.
Do it.
Thanks, is that Bill Nighy? Yeah. And I do make an exception for About Time, but I fully accept why people don't. So I'm an About Time apologist. But Man Up, watch that. Underrated.
Oh well. One film I think is underrated is 127 Hours, Danny Boyle film starring James Franco.
I'll give you one further. I think most Danny Boyle films are underrated, with the exception of Trainspotting.
Trainspotting is very rated.
Very rated.
Yeah.
And rightly so.
Slumdog Millionaire got
Slumdog Millionaire,
Awards.
rated.
Yeah, super rated.
But I think films like 127 Hours,
Steve Jobs
is...
oh my God, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Oh my God, Larry.
Oh my God.
That's like the quintessential underrated
you know what?
film.
I'm going to put that on my list of films I want to rewatch because I go on about it a bit too much. And I want to... I'm not remembering the scenes I know I love well enough. And I want... Sorry, I know we're meant to be talking about 127 Hours. Steve Jobs, we've talked about... I think we mentioned it 2 or 3 times on the show when talking about Social Network. Steve Jobs is really good.
I can't believe I don't
know why people didn't like it.
I can't believe I've only seen Steve Jobs once, actually.
Yeah.
In the cinema. Sorry. Yes, 127 Hours.
127 hours.
Aaron Ralston gets his arm trapped in the canyon.
This is the story of the guy who
Aaron
was
Ralston.
like an experienced hiker in Grand Canyon National Park who goes out alone, forgets to tell anyone where he's going.
Not just forgets, but out of arrogance. He's a bit careless.
Careless. He doesn't find his proper multi-tool with knife. He has his blunt one. Doesn't really fill up his water to the top. There's all of these things that they show in the beginning. And he gets stuck on this almost like weirdly spherical boulder that falls down this crevasse of mini canyon. And his arm is stuck there. And he is stuck there for 127 hours. Yeah. And the film is mostly taking place there, but it's intercut with all these different, memories and it gets very deep about the existential reasons about this stone that is now trapped him. It's been traveling through space and hundreds of thousands of miles and lodged between these 2 canyons. The poster is quite good because it's these 2 rocks and this big boulder that he's jumping across, and it's this really randomly placed boulder that sits in between these two canyons.
And just the thing on the poster design actually for 127 Hours, it actually looks like an hourglass of time, doesn't it? With him in the middle.
Yes. And the reason why I think this film is better than what it is because, I just said about the things about him, the way in which he remembers how many drops of water he puts in his bottle. And in the beginning, it shows you like how he rushed out. But the way in which it tells you a very brief but effective story of this person's life in a sort of un-American dramatized, it's not too emotional way, and the kind of hallucinations he has and the little moments where he starts to lose his mind and think about these interactions he had and how it led him to this very point at this very time. And I think it's really engaging. I think it's one of James Franco's best roles, probably just shy of Spring Breakers, which I think is really quite transformative. Disaster Artist he's really good in. And yeah, I don't hear many people talking about it. It's very Danny Boyle. Yes. You'll see so many of his other films, especially like, Slumdog Millionaire and Trainspotting, you'll see so many bits of that. I ended up reading that book, which wasn't as interesting. It was a lot of hiking. A lot of hiking stories.
I agree. I think 127 Hours is as good as you say. And has that kind of pop video aesthetic of Danny Boyle, where he like intercuts when just to show his thirst, he thinks of like Budweiser adverts, and things like that. Just to say, 127 Hours was nominated for an Oscar, so it was rated. But I do agree that people don't talk about that film anymore, and the whole reason is why people go, oh, is that the film with the guy with the arm? Yeah, I don't know watch that.
It's like that film Buried with Ryan Reynolds.
Right,
it gets put into that category.
Squeamish. It's the squeamishness. People, there's just a
B-movie.
barrier for a lot of people. Like people think no. So
and obviously there's the whole sequence where he inevitably has to cut off his arms, get himself free, which is pretty well done, but also kind of horrifying. And go check it out.
I've got one for you as well. Again, this film, it's hard to say it's underrated because it was Oscar nominated, not for Best Picture, but for Best Actress.
Yeah.
This film came out a couple of years ago, and I did mention it when we talked about Spencer, because this is a film called Jackie, about Jackie Kennedy with Natalie Portman playing her, all set in the week.
Also nominated for Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, yes, like I said, I know, nominated for an Oscar, but like,
I agree with you.
I think it's kind of like, passed over, because people think it looks like a classic biopic, but it's actually much more interesting than that, in the same way Spencer is, in my opinion. I know a lot of people who really don't like Spencer.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I like about Jackie, so it's about Jackie Kennedy, and it's about JFK's assassination, but completely from her point of view, in the week sort of surrounding that event, before, after, during, and her role within it, how she's sort of helpless, but also manufacturing her own legacy in real time. And it's made by Pablo Larraín, who shoots it all in this beautiful, shimmering 60s film stock. And
he loves shooting on like slightly overexposed, grainy film.
Yeah, exactly.
You can see like the dust on
the noise. I mean, look, I talked about it a bit when we talked about Spencer. You can go check out Spencer review.
Yeah, check out Spencer review.
But he makes it a ghost tale. He makes it a ghost story about this woman who's lost her husband and is haunted by the spectre of her husband and the trauma she suffered. And it actually shows the assassination, reconstructs rather the assassination of JFK in really graphic detail to really hammer home to you like how traumatic this event would have been.
Yeah.
And they use an actor to play JFK who is so like him, to look at. They use this score. It's Johnny Greenwood in Spencer, but I think it's Mika Levy in Jackie, who did Under the Skin, the Scarlett Johansson film. And she creates these soundscapes that are really haunting and instantly make you think this is a fairy tale, a fable, a woman left alone in a castle going mad.
Yeah. It's
a really interesting film. I think it has one of John Hurt's last performances in it. Check it out.
Natalie Portman's so good.
She's great in it. She's just great. I'd give a shout out for that one. Also, can I just say, Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson, that's also an underrated film. I need to watch that. But that's for another time.
Well, there you go. I reckon there are so many we've not even thought of. Please, I would love to hear underrated films because I think I want to watch them. Let us know. hello@PULP KITCHEN podcast. Send us an email and let us know. I'd love to just like rack off a load.
Yeah, I want to know I want to know all the good films out there that I've missed, that I've overlooked. I want to check those out. So yeah, let us know.
And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to this episode of PULP KITCHEN. We post a new episode of this show every single Wednesday. Yep. We do a numbered episode every Wednesday. You'll know that if you follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, we post loads more content throughout the week. Yep. We do reviews. We sometimes put our reviews separate to our episodes.
Yeah, news, reviews, games, the whole shebang.
Follow us on all of that.
Yep.
Please give this video a like if you're watching it. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. It really makes a difference. If you're on Spotify, go to that little star rating and rate us.
Thank you. That's it. Thanks very much. See you next week.
See you next week.